All right. The date, October 23rd, 1927. The time, well, it wasn't Monday Night Football, I can tell you that much. But hold on just a second. The time, I believe it was 3 o'clock. Yes, football at the Polo Grounds today, 3 p.m. Don't you dare miss it. If you're interested, just so you know, general admission seats are 50 cents. The entire lower stands is $1.10. Reserve seating is $1.65. And if you want some box seats, they're only $2.20. Get them while they're available. The teams, the Frankford Yellow Jackets at the New York Giants. The place, the Polo Grounds in New York, baby. Now, if you watch my last video in this little series, you'll know that these two teams, the Frankford Yellow Jackets and the New York Giants, played each other the day before in Philadelphia, in Frankfurt, Philadelphia, on October 22nd. This would be the third time that the Giants and the Yellow Jackets would play each other on back-to-back days. 1928, they played each other twice, but it wasn't back-to-back days. 1929 would be the fourth and final time that these two teams would play each other back-to-back days. Just the first 3 years. 1925, the Giants' first season, was October 17th. They played in Frankfurt. October 18th, they played in New York. 1926, it was the 16th and 17th. They played October 16th in Frankfurt. They played October 17th in the Polo Grounds, 1926. And then this season here, they played October 22nd, Frankfurt. Then they played October 23rd in New York. The Frankfurt Yellow Jackets were the defending NFL champions. They were very good in 1926. They did almost a complete 180 in 1927. Quite possibly, and I'm going to go over this to show you. This is just like, a lot of it was obviously back then, as it is today. Obviously, the bottom line to make money, as it is today. The guys are out there today putting their lives basically on display, but on the line every play. You never know, unfortunately, when it might be your last play or whatever. But it's to make money. Well, it was the same thing back then. But also nowadays, it's also winning that Super Bowl is pretty important. Back then it was important. Okay. They wanted to win a championship, but they also wanted to make money. And obviously, the more games they played back then, because they got played per game. There were some guys that maybe had like a contract for the whole season. Those were the big stars. Most of the guys basically got paid whatever, $50, $100 or so a game. So, I think I said this in my last video. I did. Right? If you're making $100 a game and you can go out and play a game on Saturday and a game on Sunday, and you come home after the weekend with $200 back in 1927 or 1925 or 26, whatever, that's a lot of money back then. Obviously $200 nowadays, maybe buy a gallon of milk and maybe a gallon of gas. That's about it. But you go back 100 years, $200 is a lot of money. So a lot of these guys, the clubs and all, they were looking to try to, how can we make as much money as we can? And along the way, if we win the championship, okay, cool. But how can we fit in as many games as humanly possible and all? And I'll tell you what, quite possibly the downfall of the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets was their schedule. This is just stone cold crazy. Let me tell you, 7 times in 1927, 7 they played Saturday and Sunday against the same team. Holy cow! It's just all right. Where are we at here? Says it. Okay, here we go. All right. 1927 Frankford Yellow Jackets. Can I open this up? Yeah. All right, cool. All right, cool. All right. So October 1st and 2nd, now they played the All New Britain team. Okay, which, but it was a good, very good independent team. Now, by the way, the All New Britain team was the second team that the Giants ever faced in 1925 in their opening season. The first game they played was some call it a glorified scrimmage, some call it an exhibition game, whatever you want. But they played the Newark Red Jackets, were actually their first official, unofficial, whatever you want to call it, game. It didn't count the league standings, but they played the Newark Red Jackets on September 27th, 1925. A week later, 1925, on October 4th, 1925, the Giants traveled to Connecticut to play the All New Britain team. But this season here, the Frankford Yellow Jackets played the All New Britain team on Saturday, October 1st, and Sunday, October 2nd. Now, the reason why they had to play them in Philadelphia on Saturday was because they had the blue laws. There was nothing going on sports-wise in Philadelphia on Sundays 100 years ago. And that even included baseball. If you look at like the Philadelphia Athletics, the baseball team, they didn't play on Sundays in Philadelphia. If they played on Sunday, they were in New York, where they were on the road playing another team. They did not play baseball in the city of Philadelphia on Sundays 100 years ago because of the blue laws. So basically, a lot of what the Frankfurt team did was they're like, okay, well, you come to our place on Saturday, we'll play, and then on Sunday we'll go to your place and we'll play, and we'll everybody will make twice as much money, right? I mean, obviously they didn't realize that it really wasn't the best of health for them, especially because if you consider, you figure the fact that when these guys played football, they played for 60 minutes. Now, there was substitutions, don't get me wrong, but they could only substitute. You couldn't substitute for a guy or whatever, like 2 times, 3 times in a quarter. I mean, usually if he came out in the second quarter, he couldn't go back in. He'd have to stay out, I think, like the third quarter. So, so if you were in there, you were in there for a while. Some of these guys played 60 minutes. But I said there were substitutions. So, I mean, not everybody played 60 minutes. But, if you were part of the starting 11, you played offense and defense. And, you're playing offense and defense for 60 minutes on Saturday, and then you're playing offense and defense for 60 minutes on Sunday. That's a lot of football, a lot of football. And I said, and to do it Saturday and Sunday 7 times in the one season is just crazy. Okay. Then 2 weeks later, they played the Buffalo Bisons on Saturday, October 15th, and then Sunday, October 16th. The next week against the Giants, Saturday, October 22nd, Sunday, October 23rd. Giants home and home. The following week, they played the Providence. This is just crazy. The following week, Providence Steamroller. Saturday, October 29th in Philadelphia. Sunday, October 30th in Providence, Rhode Island. The following week, they played the Pottsville Maroons. Saturday, November 5th in Philadelphia. Sunday, November 6th in Pottsville, Pennsylvania, which is only like 75 miles, 100 miles or so away. So it wasn't too far. But still, I mean, look, they played Buffalo. They played Buffalo on Saturday. They took a train, right? Because they weren't taking United Airlines, right? And then they went to Buffalo, then played a football game the very next day. Crazy. Okay, so then the following week, they played the Cleveland Bulldogs, November 12th and 13th. Then a couple weeks later, the first weekend in December, they played the Chicago Bears, December 3rd in Philadelphia, December 4th in Chicago. 7 times during this season. I mean, you can see why. I mean, what were they? It was 6, 9, and 3. I mean, they had a horrible, horrible record. They didn't start off too bad. Let's see here. They lost the Dayton Triangles, and then they tied the Dayton Triangles, and they had a couple wins. And after that, they had a bunch of losses. once they started playing a lot of those back-to-back games, they just started losing a lot of games. Now, I said in 1926, the Frankford Yellow Jackets were fantastic. They won the championship. They only had one loss. I'm going to go over a little bit of their history here, okay, in just a moment. But I said, I mean, this is just crazy. They wound up playing, 18 games, but that was 18 league games. So it looks like they played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. They played 21 games. So basically, it's almost like what they do nowadays, right? 17 games and 3 preseason games. So at the 20, but here they played 21. But they're 21. They played from September 16th to December 10th. So they played 21 games in 3 months. They played a lot of football. I mean, here it is nowadays, right? We're playing 20 games, but the games don't start until like the beginning of August, right? And now the season stretches into January. So I mean, they play a lot of games. That was one of the reasons why that they wore down, and they were just not very good. But the Giants this season, I mean, the day before they were in Frankfurt, and they wound up beating the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets 13-0. And this game here, they really whooped up on them pretty good. I got quite a few articles to read, and there's a funny little story I'm going to go over when I start reading these articles. It's about the rule changes, and it just goes to show you how sometimes you get used to something, and they change the rules on it, and you kind of forget. As I said, it's an interesting story. I'm going to go over it there, but just want a little bit of the history here. The Frankfurt Yellow Jackets the 1927 season. Said the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets was their 4th in the National Football League. They started the year before the Giants. They started in 1924. So 24, 25, 26, 27. This was their 4th season. Obviously, this is the Giants' 3rd season, 25, 26, 27. The team failed to improve upon their previous output of 14-1-2 in 26 when they were the champions. They're winning only 6 league games to finish in 7th place in the league in standings. I mean, they were 9-3 overall, but 3 of those wins were against non-league teams. In the NFL, they were 6-9. So they went from basically 14-1-2 the prior year to 6-9-3. I mean, it was just not very good. But this was like the beginning of the end for them. It's a shame because they had, once again, as I said, they had a very good team, very good defense in 1926. They played the Giants twice, the 16th and 17th of October 1926. And they shut them out both games 6-0. Now they didn't have a phenomenal offense. Their offense was good enough, but they had a very, very good defense. Giants in this season, 1927, had a very good defense. They only gave up in 13 games. They only gave up 20 points, 1.5 points per game. Pretty good. Huh? The Giants did not give up a successful field goal try all season long, and in fact, in 13 games, the Giants opponents only put the football between the uprights 2 times all season long. 13 games, the Giants' opponents kicked the ball through the uprights 2 times. That was it. Not 1 field goal. There was a missed extra point, but there were 2 successful extra point tries against the Giants all season long. That was it. That's freaking crazy. That is really, really crazy. But I mean, the Yellow Jacket, they'd been around actually in the 1800s. All right. So, they had to work their way up, and they had to basically prove that they were a good enough team to be into the NFL. I mean, there was a lot of leagues. There was leagues in Ohio, leagues all over the place. But it wasn't just like the fee was like, I mean, when the Giants went, actually, I understand that when the Giants went, it was $500. I believe the next season, I think it was like $2,500 to get in. Well, I mean, basically, you just couldn't waive some money, and the NFL just took you in. You had to earn the right. I mean, you had to be a superior independent team, to be able to get in. You had to basically work your way in to get in. The reason why the Giants got in, okay, they were not, okay, a superior independent team or anything like that. But what they wanted to do was they wanted to get, and they needed some support from some big cities, like AKA New York, right? So that's why that Joe Carr came, and he came and knocking, and he was him and Dr. Harry March came, and we're trying to explain to them, that they're looking, a lot of these smaller towns, so to speak, that were trying to support football. The teams might have been okay or whatever, but there's just they needed fans, to get into the stands. And where else better than New York City? The city, there was a lot of fanfare as far as college football in New York, right? So they figure if the pros could start dipping into some of that, they'd have themselves something on their hands. And it took a few years, but obviously football started taking off in New York. But the Yellow Jackets here were a professional American football team, part of the National Football League from 1924 to 1931. Basically, toward the end, their team started becoming bad, but then with the Depression, that really sucked the life out of it. It was hard enough, to get people to pay money to come see you play. But, they only wanted to come and see you play if you were good. I mean, it's kind of the same way it is nowadays, right? I mean, if you got the Giants or, going to the last game of the season, right? They play 17 games, say they're 1-15. You're not going to get an overflowing crowd of Giant fans at MetLife Stadium. People are going to stay home. Well, that's the way it was back then, right? I mean, they wanted to see, support a good team. But if your team wasn't good, and then also it in the factor of the Depression, money was tough. It's like, well, I can go watch the Frankford Yellow Jackets lose to the Canton Bulldogs, or I can feed my family a loaf of bread. Let me see where, So it's kind of like a no-brainer. So that was another one of the things that made it very, very difficult back in the Depression. That really just killed a lot of teams. Let's see here. Although its origins date back, the Yellow Jackets' origin dates back to as early as 1899 with the Frankford Athletic Association. The Yellow Jackets won the NFL championship in 1926. This is right out of Wikipedia, by the way. Okay. The team played its home games from 1923 in Frankfurt Stadium, also called Yellow Jacket Field, in Frankfurt, a section in the northeastern part of Philadelphia, noted for the Market Frankfurt line that terminates there. All right, so let's see the founding. The Frankfurt Athletic Association was organized in May 1899 in the parlor of the Suburban Club. The cost of purchasing a share in the association was $10. A lot of money back then. However, there was also contributing memberships ranging from $1 to $2.50 made available to the general public. The association was a community-based nonprofit organization of local residents and businesses, in keeping with its charter, which stated that all profits shall be donated to charity. All of the team's excess income was donated to local charitable institutions. The beneficiaries of this generosity included the Frankfurt Hospital, the Frankfurt Day Nursery, and the local Boy Scouts, and the local American Legion Post 211. And it's also funny, too, because the American Legion Post 211 had, I believe it was a band that would go with them on the road. And I believe, if I remember from reading, I think it was reading the articles because I pre-read a couple of the articles I'm about to read. I think they came to this game. The officers of the association never received a salary or compensation for their work on behalf of the team. I mean, it just goes. I mean, I despise the Philadelphia teams and all that stuff. But you got to give them credit where credit's due. Their fans are passionate. Their fans are loyal. Okay, they love their football. And I said something like that. You know, the band goes on the road. Right, they follow the team and all that stuff as they did with the Yellow Jackets and everything like that. You know, and just sorry, buddy. My buddy Brady's laying down at my feet. Sometimes I'm not exactly sure where he's laying. Okay, you all right, buddy? Sometimes I move my legs and I want to bump it into him. But you got to give them credit because they did this all. You know, the bands and all of that did it all. They didn't get paid. Right? They did it out of, you know, because the love of Philadelphia, the love of their team, the love of the sports and all that stuff and everything. So I said, I can't stand the Philadelphia teams. I hate them. But I said, you got to give them a lot of credit. They are passionate about their teams. I'm down here in South Jersey. I'm about 20, 25 minutes away from Philadelphia. I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, the Philadelphia fans are passionate about their teams. The playing field, known as Worcester Field, became the first official home of the Yellow Jackets. Several years later, when the construction of the current high school was proposed, the team moved to Browns Field. The association initially fielded a baseball team, however. Soccer and football clubs were also formed. The association's football team played several games in 1899, including victorious contests against the Pioneer Athletic Association, Jefferson Medical College, the Philadelphia Athletic Club, and a team from Atlantic City. The original Frankford Athletic Association disbanded before the 1909 football season. Several of the original players from the 1899 football team kept the team together, and they became known as the Loyola Athletic Club. In keeping with the Yellow Jackets tradition, they carried the Frankford name again in 1912 to become the Frankford Athletic Association. Okay, so this is where the Yellow Jackets start entering into the NFL. In the early 1920s, the Frankfurt Athletic Association Yellow Jackets gained the reputation of being one of the best independent football teams in the nation. And this, once again, you had to earn your way in. It wasn't like, we won 2 games last season. Here's our money. Let's get into the NFL. Nope. You had to be a very good team. Right? Because, back then, college football, boxing, horse racing, baseball were huge. So if they're trying to field, get a league together of professional football teams, they want the best of the best. Because even they had the best of the best, they still had a hard time getting people in the stands. Let's see here. In 1922, Frankfurt absorbed the Philadelphia City champion team, the Union Quakers of Philadelphia. That year, Frankfurt captured the unofficial championship of Philadelphia during the 1922 and 23 seasons. The Yellow Jackets compiled a 6-2-1 record against teams from the National Football League. This led to the association being granted an NFL franchise in 1924. So they were a very good independent team. And in those 2 seasons, 23 and 22 and 23, they played, what would they be, 9 games against teams in the NFL, right? And he combined a 6-win, 2 losses, 1 tie record against teams in the NFL. So they proved themselves worthy. They were a very good independent team, and they played 9 games prior, right, against teams in the NFL, and it was 6-2-1. So they certainly proved their worth. The 1924 season, the Yellow Jackets assembled in September 24 under coach Punk Berryman to begin preparing for the upcoming season. The team included players like Harry Dayhoff, Russ Stein, Joe Spagna, Whitey Thomas, Al Bednar, and Bob Jamieson. The team often played 15 to 20 games a season. Frequently, they would schedule 2 games on the same weekend, as I just went over a little while ago. Typically, one at home on Saturday, and because of the Pennsylvania Blue laws, an away game on Sunday. In their first game as a member of the NFL, the Yellow Jackets defeated the Rochester Jeffersons 21-0. Frankford finished the season with an overall record of 17-3-1 in 1924. They played 21 games. Crazy. They had it with an 11-2-1 record in league play. They finished third in the league standings, only behind the Cleveland Bulldogs and the Chicago Bears. The Cleveland Bulldogs in 1924 were the champions. Under modern standing tabulation procedures, Frankford would have finished in first place because ties did not count in the standings. Ties didn't count. Okay, so if they were 11-2-1 basically in the NFL, right? NFL games, they were 11-2-1 basically. They were 11-2. Ties did not count. The Yellow Jackets also set the record for rushing touchdowns in the season with 38 during the season, which stood until 2022. Let's see here. The 1925 season. In 1925, the Frankfurt Athletic Association enlisted the services of Guy Chamberlain, who served as a player coach for the NFL championship teams, such as the 1922 and 23 Canton Bulldogs and the 1924 Cleveland Bulldogs. After a 9-1 start in league play, Frankfurt lost several key players, including Chamberlain, to injuries. After a 49-0 defeat to the Pottsville Maroons, Frankfurt's captain Bull Bayman was suspended indefinitely from the team for indifferent play. Not sure what that means, but he was accused of not giving his best during the past few weeks because of some dissension with other players. Okay. The move to help improve the team, which posted a 13-7 record in the league play. That was 1925. Well, here we go, 1926, when they became the overall champions. The Yellow Jackets began the 1926 season with an exhibition game against Atlantic City Roses, which Frankfurt won 45-0. Their NFL campaign started just 6 days later in a disappointing 6-6 tie at home against the Akron Pros. The first weekend in October saw the club post 2 solid victories over the Hartford Blues. They then played a 2-game series against the Buffalo Rangers. During Saturday game, the Yellow Jackets defeated the Rangers 30-0 in Frankfurt. The Jackets then headed to Buffalo for the Sunday game. However, the Rangers canceled due to wet grounds. The Yellow Jackets prepared for another 2-game set, this time against the New York Giants, resulting in a pair of 6-0 Frankfurt victories. The Canton Bulldogs were next on the schedule. Frankfurt won the first game 10-0, while the second game was canceled due to rain. A lot of that happened. A lot of that happened because it was poor drainage back then. I mean, the fields, if they got wet, they were wet, and if the fields were going to drain, it might take a long time. So if the field started puddling up and it kept raining, it was just going to get worse and worse and worse. It's not like today. You can have a wave of a wall of water wash over the field. And, with the way it is nowadays, the fields dry up really, really quickly. Well, it wasn't like that back then. So let's see. We'll go toward the end of the season. After a win over the Chicago Bears, the Yellow Jackets played a second 2-game series against the Providence Steamroller. Frankfurt won the first game 24-0, but the second was canceled because of heavy snow. Frankfurt then had to play their final game of the season against the Pottsville Maroons, who were still upset after the NFL championship title had been stripped from them after complaints from Frankfurt. The game resulted in a scoreless tie. However, at 14-1-2, final record left the Yellow Jackets alone atop the NFL standings. Since a championship game would not exist in the NFL until 1933, the team with the best overall regular season record, or the winning percentage, right, was named the NFL champion. This gave the Yellow Jackets undisputed claim to the league crown. The Jackets' 14 wins during the 1926 championship season set an NFL record for the regular season victories that stood until 1984, when it was broken by the 49ers, who went 15-1. That was an unbelievable team. Unbelievable team. Now you start having kind of like the downfall of the 1927 to 29 for the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets. Guy James Adams took over as president of the Frankfurt Athletic Association in 1927. He hired Charlie Moran as the team's new coach. However, Moran's son Tom briefly served as the team's interim coach that year after Charlie took a leave of absence to officiate in the 1927 World Series between the Yankees and the Pirates. Now, interestingly, Charlie Moran was the coach, of the Frankford Yellow Jackets. He had to take leave to go umpire in the World Series. His son Tom was the interim coach. Well, interestingly enough, Tom Moran was a member of the 1925 New York Giants. Little tidbit for you there. Sadly, Tom Moran, he died at an early. I think he died. I think if I remember correctly, he took his own life, and I think it was in 1933. I believe he shot himself. Sadly, because he had failing health. And if I remember correctly, because I'm writing a book on the 1925 Giants, I believe it was 1933. I mean, I have to look it back up, but I think it was 33. He was at home, and I think he went upstairs. His mother was downstairs, I think, making dinner, preparing dinner or something like that. He went upstairs. I think he took a shotgun, and I think I can't remember if it was to the chest or to the head or whatever it was, but he took his own life because I don't know what the health was, but he had some type of failing health. So very, very sad there. The Jackets suffered as a result of these changes and held a 2-5-1 record after 8 league games. This led Ed Weir becoming the team's player coach. Weir had fellow players Russ Doherty, Charlie Rogers, and Sweet Youngstrom served as assistant coaches. Under Weir's leadership, the team finished with a 6-9-3 record in 27. The Jackets rebounded in 1928 with an 11-3-2 campaign. Very good. Behind only the Providence Steamroller in 1928. The Providence Steamroller won the league championship in 1928. 1929, Bull Beeman became coach of the Yellow Jackets. The team finished with a 9-4-5 record for third place in the league standings. Now we have the decline here. The final 2 seasons. 1930, the Yellow Jackets began to decline mainly because of financial hardships brought on by the Great Depression in 1930. Shep Royal, president of the Frankford Athletic Association, arranged for coaches Bull Beeman and Wally Deal to attend a coaching clinic in Chicago run by Glenn Pop Warner and Dick Hanley in hopes that it would improve their coaching techniques and develop a way to better utilize their players. At the same time, however, the association's management decided to retain only a few veteran players, replacing most of the squad with rookies direct from college. This resulted in a string of 10 consecutive losses, 8 of which were in October. Wow. Imagine losing 8 games in 1 month. Wow. Which was the worst losing streak in Yellow Jackets history. To end the streak, Frankford purchased 11 players from the Minneapolis Red Jackets, and George Gibson took over the team's coaching duties from Beeman. The Legion Post also tried to rally to the Yellow Jackets, pledging its support. However, the effects of the economic depression and poor performance on the field combined to reduce the team's fan base, and that's a killer. You start losing your team's fan base, unless you had ways of supplementing, right? Like Tim Mara, obviously the owner of the Giants, was a bookkeeper, right? He had money. He could supplement this team was in financial hardship. He had ways of keeping the team afloat. Well, some teams did not have that. The only way they had of making money or keeping the team afloat was by means of football. And if you couldn't get people in the stands, paying people, to watch your game, it was just a matter of time before you had a fold-up shop. Let's see. The team had hoped to draw broader support from Philadelphia at large, but before that started, the 1931 season, Frankford Stadium was severely damaged, and this hurt them as well, too, by fire, forcing the club to find another location for its home games. However, most facilities suitable for professional football were already booked. The Yellow Jackets had to overcome the scheduling problem for playing at 2 different locations around the city of Philadelphia. They played at Philadelphia Municipal Stadium and the Baker Bowl. Philadelphia Municipal Stadium and the Baker Bowl were located outside the Frankford area, making attendance difficult for local fans. So, first of all, you had the Depression, which made it tough because people didn't have money, and then the people who did want to come, maybe see, now they had to travel to go to see the games because it wasn't in Frankfurt anymore. Herb Joesting took over as head coach in 1931. However, the team was in terrible shape. Some members of the press began referring to the team as the Philadelphia Yellow Jackets in an attempt to increase the fan support, which failed to materialize. By October, NFL President Joe Carr, after witnessing the poor attendance in Frankfurt's home loss to the Portsmouth Spartans, approved a plan for the Yellow Jackets to finish the season as a traveling team. Carr hoped that this move would allow the team to curb spending and to rebound financially. But it was not meant to be. On October 26, 1931, the Yellow Jackets defeated the Bears. Wrigley Field. Let's see. That was one of their last wins ever. But let's see here. Frankfurt Yellow Jackets. Right there. 1929, 30, 31. Okay, their final season. Let's see. 1931. My bad. Let's see here. They finished 1-6-1 in the NFL. I mean, they were at the bottom of the league. They were the worst team. The winning percentage. They were tied with the Brooklyn Dodgers. The Brooklyn Dodgers were 2-12. The Yellow Jackets were 1-6. 1931, the Yellow Jackets. They got shut out basically in every game. I mean, they won one game at Chicago against the Bears of all teams. They beat them 13-12, but they lost 13-0, 14-0, 15-0, 19-0, 6-0, 20-0. They had a tie in there of 0-0. I mean, they just couldn't score any points. They were just a bad team. And as I said, the problem is that if you're a bad team during Depression, it's just a bad combination. It's a shame because there were a couple of seasons there where they were a really, really good team, and in 1933 the Eagles would come around. So it wasn't like, obviously, it wasn't like that. There's no team from Philadelphia in the NFL, but it was a shame because the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets first few seasons there were a very good team. And as I said, in 1926, they were the best team in the NFL. All right, so I got a few stories here. Now I'm going to go over this one little story tidbit here first. It's kind of funny. Let's see here. Okay, is this it? Let me see. Okay. Now, they said that I believe it was 1920, well, it's for Giants' first season, 1925. 1925 and 1926, the goalposts were on the goal line, right? 1927, they pushed them back to the end line. Well, see, there were, some of the players, were just so used to the goalposts being on the goal line that every now and then, when in 1927, when they were back on the end line, sometimes the players forgot. they forgot about it, and in this game, that was one of the cases here. And interestingly, the Giants, probably the Giants' best player the first few years was Hinkie Haynes, and he became became a victim of forgetting where the goalposts were at. And in this little article here, it says, forgetting the goalpost change, the star struggles on after scoring. It says, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. An observer of football exclaimed at the professional football game at the Polo Grounds yesterday as Hinkie Haynes, former star Penn State, snared a forward pass from a Giant teammate 8 yards over the goal line. So he was way in the back of the end zone. He caught a pass. He's in the back of the end zone. He caught it, in, touchdown. Problem was, he caught the ball right? And as he caught the ball, he looks and he sees the goalposts. Well, he's going back in his time. He's like, oh, the goalpost. I got to get to the goalpost to get to the goal line, to get over the goal line to score a touchdown. But in reality, he was in the end zone. He forgot all about it. So he snared a forward pass from a Giant teammate 8 yards over the goal line and tried to go the remaining 2 yards to the goalpost. He caught the ball. He's like, oh, the goalposts are 2 yards away. I got to get to the goalpost so I can score a touchdown. As I said, little did he know at that particular instant that he was in the end zone. He scored a touchdown. But he thought the goalposts, right? He thought he had to get to the goalpost. But he's forgetting that the new rule change, which has moved the goalpost back 10 yards, but also 5 of the Yellow Jacket players also had the same opinion as Haynes, swooped down on Hinkie and dropped him to the side with a smash, thinking they had averted a touchdown by 2 yards. So basically, they not only did Hinkie Haynes think that he was short of a touchdown, but the Yellow Jacket players also thought he was short of a touchdown too, and they tackled him. He was 8 yards in the back of the end zone, right? It's a touchdown, and they all piled on top of him to stop him short, thinking that he didn't get to the goalpost yet. Well, once again, as I said, little did they know he was actually in the end zone, and it was a touchdown. All right, so this is got this one. Here's a nice little long one here, showing you how the Giants whooped up on Frankfurt. Frankfurt beaten by the football Giants. New York mixes brilliant dashes and aerials behind superb line play to win 27-0. Haggerty runs 50 yards. Another one says he travels nearly 200 in the flashy sprint down to the 3-yard mark. Nationally known stars shine on both teams. Okay. The New York football Giants scored their second victory in 2 days over the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets when they won 27-0 yesterday afternoon at the Polo Grounds. A crowd of 15,000 persons passed a lively 2-hour watching the New York professional aggregation flash a brand of football superior to anything shown heretofore this season. Not many of the boys who were willing to die for dear old alma mater ever did any better work in the line than they did the exemplars of the postgraduate football and the sign checked yesterday. Very few gridirons anywhere have seen a more dazzling passing exhibition than the Giants flashed, or a more thrilling run than was turned in by Ghost Haggerty, erstwhile Georgetown Iron Man, who made Fordham rue the day he ever got off the Pennsylvania Railroad train. The Maroons were on the offensive through most of the game, and the best tunes from several snappy Frankfurt bands could not drum up much enthusiasm on the Pennsylvania side of the field after the game got underway. There is no question that Frankfurt won the laurels in the matter of music. They had 2 bands the Giants only had 1, but Frankfurt had 2. And one of them was One of them was outfitted like the Northeast Mounted Police. This was the Frankfurt Post 211 of the American Legion. I was talking about them earlier. The Post 211. They had their own band that shows up at the Frankfurt games. Giants excel in line play. Frankfurt also had something of an edge in partisanship, but neither music nor vocal support have figured very prominently in football victories. The Giants had a battering line and a backfield that seems to improve with age. Hinkie Haynes hit the line and ran the ends and caught passes with his usual nonchalance and aplomb. A-P-L-O-M-B. Aplomb. The energetic Mule Wilson from the Aggies of Texas was also covered himself with glory by scoring 2 touchdowns and making any number of sensational rushes. McBride, once of Syracuse, performed with forward passes and field goals. Well, it wasn't field goals, it was extra points, as he had never shown upstate. Chick Meehan, coach of the New York University football team and former Syracuse coach. sat on the sidelines receiving congratulations about his present team and giving congratulations about his former teams, which included McBride and Jappy, who also played yesterday, and lots of others. McBride threw forward passes that resulted in 2 touchdowns. One was to Wilson for 40 yards, more or less. The other was to Haynes for a somewhat shorter distance. Not being very specific there, huh? Wilson's other touchdown was scored from scrimmage. The 4th touchdown was made by Phil White, former Oklahoma player. Milsteed and Howard in action. These backs and the elusive Doug Wyckoff, formerly of Georgia Tech, could never have flashed so brilliantly were it not for the big line which surged forward as irresistibly as a flow of lava. The line included Sentry Milsteed, once of Yale, Ed Garvey, formerly of Notre Dame, the squared circle and coaching jobs, Al Nesser, the lunging plumber, who has played football for many, Red Howard late of Princeton, and Ken Hubbard, the great Geneva end. This crowd pushed over a yellow jacket line that included the huge Connaughton from Georgetown, the Weirs, Joe Weir and Ed Weir from Nebraska, Maxwell, formerly of Notre Dame, and Comstock, also of Georgetown. But when all is considered, the thing that made blasé football followers stand up was Haggerty's running. There were 2 good ones, but the hair-raising dash came in the second quarter when he intercepted a pass. He snared it back of the 50-yard mark in his own territory and was down 3 yards from the Yellow Jackets' goal. He must have probably traveled 200 yards, twisting and dodging to travel that 50 yards as the crow flies. While he was traveling it, everybody, including lots of football players who had seen kickoffs run back for scores and fumbles, turned into touchdowns, held his breath as pivots, side slips, and tail spins, and several assorted kinds of jumps were used by Haggerty to get by the Yellow Jacket tacklers. The crowd, of course, yelled itself hoarse and gave him another cheer even as the men were trotting off the field at the end of the game. All right, so now we got the lineup, starting lineup. Paul Jappy was the starting left end for the Giants. Milsteed was the left tackle. Murtaugh was the left guard. Biggs was the center. Nesser was the right guard. Steve Owen was the right tackle. Hubbard was the right end. Hinkie Haynes was the quarterback. Jack McBride was the left halfback. White was the right halfback, and Mule Wilson was the fullback, starting fullback. Now, the Giants scored a touchdown in the first quarter. They scored 2 touchdowns in the second quarter. There was no scoring in the third, and then they scored a touchdown in the fourth quarter to finish up 27-0. They made 3 of 4 extra points. All right, for Frankfurt, Ed Weir was their starting left end. Bayman was their left tackle. Comstock was their left guard. Maxwell was their starting center. Connaughton was their right guard. Youngstrom was their right tackle. McGrath was their right end. Griggs was their starting quarterback. Moran was their starting left halfback. Moynihan was their starting right halfback, and Wilcox was their starting fullback. All right, so that's that. There's a couple other articles here I got. All right, where are we at here? Is this it? Okay, let's see now here. So I'm kind of hoping somebody's will want to be a little more specific, like how far guys ran for touchdowns or something or whatever. The New York Grid Giants' second pro football showing of the season at the Polo Grounds yesterday was an even more auspicious affair than the opening a week earlier. Tim Mara's show drew 22,000 fans to see the Giants score their second victory over the Frankford Yellow Jackets in 2 successive starts. Now, the other article said there was 15,000 fans. Here it said there was 22,000 fans. They did a third job of it, moreover, turning in a 27-0 win. The reinforced Giants were as far superior to the Pennsylvanians as the score indicated, and the Invaders at no time seriously threatened to score. They matched Jack McBride's men only in punting and in kicking end, they had plenty of opportunity to show their form, but rarely had the ball in their own territory and made only 4 first downs to the Giants' 14. Play was largely open, and the aerial work of the Giants showed marked improvement. It took the Giants' strategy board most of the first period to test out the visitors' line, and only in the last few minutes were the locals able to work in the scoring position. Wilson went over for the first score, slanting off left tackle when play was resumed. McBride added the point. After Wilson exchanged punts with Mercer, Hubbard nailed Moynihan as the old Villanova star received on his own 25-yard line. The Yellow Jackets kicked out but yielded on 2 line smashes and looked bad as McBride hurled a 15-yard pass to Wilson, who galloped 35 yards through a broken field for his second touchdown. Again, McBride kicked the extra point. Haggerty gave the crowd a second big thrill, immediately thereafter snatching a Frankford pass at midfield and racing through a broken field to the 5-yard line. Here it said the 5-yard line. Another article said it was like the 3-yard line. Right. Wyckoff carried it to the 2-yard line, marked what the Yellow Jackets held and kicked it. Wow. So the Yellow Jackets, the Giants got all the way down there, but they tried to score, and 4 downs. The Yellow Jackets defense held, and they kicked out of danger. White intercepted the pass and gained 25 yards, and Wyckoff skirted left end to the 1-yard line. White went over for the touchdown, but missed a placement kick. The Giants' final score came midway in the fourth quarter. White intercepted a pass after some fancy line smashing. 2 passes, McBride to Biggs and McBride to Haynes, took the ball over from the 25-yard ribbon. Again, McBride added the odd point. Not the extra point, the odd point. All right, what do we got here? Next. Got 3 more here for you. This one's a short one here. Grid Giants score second victory over the rival Yellow Jackets. For 2 years, Tim Maris football Giants tried to chalk up a victory over the Yellow Jackets of Frankford, Pennsylvania, and failed. After the first 2 seasons, 25 and 26, the Giants were 0-4 against the Frankford Yellow Jackets. Actually, in those first 4 games, the Giants only scored 3 points against the Frankford Yellow Jackets. They were shut out 3 times. So, in the weekend doubleheader, the Giants achieved this ambition twice, defeating the Quakers at Philadelphia Saturday 13-0, and at the Polo Grounds yesterday before 22,000 fans, 27-0. The Mara men ran riot in the second period yesterday and scored 3 touchdowns and 2 subsequent kicks for a total of 20 points. Now here it says they scored 3 touchdowns in the second period, which I don't think is true. I think they scored 1 in the first, 2 in the second, 1 in the fourth. So they're all a lot of discrepancies in these articles here. In the last period, Hinkie Haynes tallied again. Now, according to other things, Hinkie Haynes didn't score. So, Mule Wilson, former Lafayette player, was the star of the game in the Giants uniform. Wilson crossed the goal line twice. Doc White and Horace Haggerty also did some splendid work for the locals. The Pennsylvanians presented 2 former rivals in their lineup. Ignacio Molinay of Cornell and Charlie Rogers of Pennsylvania. Eddie Weir, All-American tackle from Nebraska, played and for the visitors. And the gigantic Connaughton of Georgetown, All-American guard last year, was in the Yellow Jackets line. So this one was not very helpful as far as like figuring out like scores and all that stuff and everything. All right, so I got this other one here. Now this one here says they scored 3 touchdowns in the second quarter. And then you got another one here. This one doesn't show anything. All right, but let's see. If you go to, let me see. Is this it right here? Okay. Is it shot? Oh, hold on here. Let me see. I'm going to pop this up here. 27-0, the box score. Yep. Yep. Okay, no. So here it says from Pro Football Reference, the Giants scored 3 touchdowns in the second quarter. So, all right, let's see. So we got 2 more articles here. Giants romp over the Frankfurt Hornets. not the Yellow Jackets, the Hornets. Wilson stars as a New York gridman again rout Charlie Moran's lads. The New York Football Giants, let's see, zoom in here, walloped the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets in the presence of about 20,000 persons at the Polo Grounds this afternoon by a score of 27-0. It's getting to be a habit with the Giants defeating these same Yellow Jackets Saturday in Philadelphia. As a result, they are now leading the Football League, the Giants. There were 4 touchdowns and 3 placement kicks afterwards. The 4th try from placement was blocked. So it's a lot of discrepancies because it says the 4th placement was blocked, which meant that the Giants should have scored 21 points in their first 3 scores and then 6 points in their last one. It wasn't the case. They scored 3 touchdowns in the second period, and one of them, they missed one of the extra points. The last touchdown, they scored a touchdown, obviously, and the last, according to the other articles and the scoring and everything like that, they made their extra point. So they scored 7 points in the final period. But here it says the 4th try from placement was blocked. So who knows? Mule Wilson made 2 of the touchdowns in the second period. Doc White also made 1 in that period. And Hinkie Haynes made the 4th one in the last quarter. McBride did all of the successful booting for extra points. Let me see here. Okay. Now, Pro Football Reference, it has Mule Wilson had a 2-yard rush. Then he had a 40-yard pass from McBride. Then Phil White had a 16-yard rush in the second quarter. And the Giants were winning 20-0 at halftime. And then in the fourth quarter, Hinkie Haynes had a 20-yard pass from McBride. So, all right, let's see here. Whoops. Let's see. The Frankfurt team arrived in style, accompanied by 2 bands. One arrayed in black caps with yellow linings. The other a snappy drum and bugle corps with red tunics. This bugle outfit represents the Frankfurt American Legion Post 11. That might be Post 211, but anyway, 45 men strong and maneuvered and played. In addition to all this music and fluttering flags, the Frankfurt people had their cheerleaders and about 2,000 rooters. But after the band had played and the cheerleaders had leaped like frogs to bring forth a long cheer for the team, the Giants went ahead and won the football game. Yeah. They paved the way for their first score by bringing the ball from their own 46-yard line to the Yellow Jackets' 20-yard line just as the first period ended. Okay. In this forward march, McBride did most of the ball carrying. On the first play of the second, I guess must be the first play of the second quarter, Wilson buried himself over the line for the first touchdown. McBride kicked the goal. And that's all it has in this one article here. All right, I got one more article here. So a lot of them are a lot of discrepancies. What we got here, this one here says, Gridiron Giants beat Frankfurt. Haggerty's run features rout of Yellow Jackets at Polo Grounds. Frankfurt Yellow Jackets spoiled the 1927 debut of Tim Mara's professional football game a week ago. And then in some measure avenged the indignity in Philadelphia Saturday. The football Giants brought the Yellow Jackets back to the Polo Grounds yesterday and presented them in all their ignominy. When the Giants were through, the Yellow Jackets were exceedingly sorry for having spoiled the Giants' debut and quite mortified on their scores. One of these was a 27-0 in favor of the Giants. Let's see. McBride and Haynes and Wyckoff and Haggerty and Mule Wilson and even Babe White made things very miserable indeed for Charlie Rogers, Babe Connaughton, and the Weir brothers and the other Yellow Jackets. It was Jack Haggerty who contributed the most remarkable performance of the day and of many a day. Jack intercepted a Frankford pass near midfield, picked it off the greensward after it had been partially blocked, stood poised momentarily as the axis of the ball turned slowly toward the ground, secured a firmer hold in the nick of time, and was off it. And how? Hither and yon and thither darted Jack Haggerty, forward and back, to the right and reverse, and when he was finally hauled to earth, he had covered 38 yards in a goalward direction. This represented an actual run of but less than 100 yards, for he darted to the sideline at his right, then dashed clear across the field to the other boundary before cutting in again. Probably every member of the opposition took a useless dive at the former Georgetown luminary before he was brought down. They all managed to touch him, but that was all. Haggerty sidestepped a half-dozen attempts and seemed to shake off as many more. It was as fine a place of broken field running as had been seen anywhere. Unfortunately, that's about unfortunate. That's all I have for this one article. And they don't do a very good job here at all. I mean, there was a lot of, lots of articles. A lot of stuff. Actually, even have some pictures and everything. But they didn't do a very, very good job at all describing like how the Giants got down the field, or how far. In these articles, you go to Pro Football Reference and they have exactly how far each touchdown run or pass was. I'm not sure how they figured that out or whatever it was, because in these articles it doesn't do a very, very good job of that. But one thing's for certain: the Giants wind up winning 27-0. They scored. All counts, it looks like they scored 20 points in the second quarter. Then they scored their final touchdown in the last period, and they wound up winning 27-0. But there's a lot of different accounts. I mean, how many the fans were there. It gets very the discrepancy is rather evident in a lot of these articles. And sometimes the more articles you have, sometimes the worse it is. I mean, you get a good broad picture with the more articles that you have because you get more information. But sometimes, I said, one article might say there's 20,000 fans, another might say 15, another might say 22,000. It's a lot of discrepancy. But one thing is that there is no discrepancy on is the Giants wind up winning this game here by a grand score of 27-0 over the Frankford Yellow Jackets. The Yellow Jackets would fall to 2-3-1. And the Giants would improve their record to 4-1-1 on this season, and of course 4-1-1, and they will be well on their way to an overall record of 11-1-1, where they would become the 1927 NFL champions. So that's what happened on this date, October 23rd, 1927, in New York football Giants history. See you next time.